Greetings, everybody. Welcome to this special episode of the Siêu School's podcast, Empowering Great Minds. My name is Zaving, and I am here with my co-host, Yên Hoà.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today, we're thrilled to bring you a conversation that is not just inspiring, but also empowering. Today, we're honored to introduce our first guest, teacher Thái Tổ, who is one of the first teachers to implement the practices of HBL into our school.
So thank you, Mai, for that introduction. I'm very happy, very honored, and very proud to be here with Dr. Eyre, and also with two of our great students here, who the whole school is very proud of. We have here Mai, who has won many awards and won many prestigious accolades, such as being top 5 in the world, as well as being top in Vietnam. So very impressive. And we also got Viên here as well, who has been in many competitions and won many scholarships, and it's just an overall great student. They're both in student council as well. So what were your roles in student council again, Viên and Mai?
Well, she is the vice president, while I'm just a member of the PR department.
You mean head of media?
So you can't really say so.
So you can see just from them being in student council, as well as all the things that they participate in, just how eager and how open-minded they are as students. So I'm just very happy to be here with everyone.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Tommy. And our second guest here today, also a very amazing woman, is Professor Deborah Eyre. She is the founder of the High Performance Learning, or also known as the HPL system, and she is also responsible for groundbreaking works that has redefined what it means to achieve academic success and also personal excellence. It is an absolute privilege to have you here today, Professor Eyre.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here at the school and in Vietnam, and particularly delighted to have the opportunity to talk to two such eminent young people. So thank you.
In this episode, we'll dive into concepts like the power of Nhất and the growth mindset, two powerful tools that can turn your setbacks into your greatest strengths. We'll also discover how your values, attitudes, and attributes, also known as VAAs, can unlock the true potential, and learn practical tips to boost your advanced cognitive performance, also known as ACPs. Trust us, you won't want to miss this, because it would help both in school and in life. We'll also tackle the questions students are really asking, so you can start applying these ideas today. Are you all excited?
Very.
I'm excited, for sure.
Now, Professor R, let's start with the power of Nhất and the growth mindset, which have inspired students and educators worldwide. So, can you explain what these tools mean and why they're so important to students like us?
So I think in the past, people believed that they had a certain level of potential or capability, and that would determine how well they'd do. So they could work hard, but they'd still only do a little bit better. It was all fixed. And but more recently, there are a lot of researchers who have looked into the kind of question of flexible mindsets, so growth mindset, as it's called, and I guess the reason that we know that growth mindset is something which is real is because neuroscience can actually show you how the brain develops. So we actually can see now that if you want to develop your brain, you just develop neural pathways which are useful, and that changes what you're capable of doing. So when I went to school a long time ago, we all knew our place in the class, and I knew what mine was. I was 12th, and I used to think about how would I get to be 11th, and in the end I decided someone would have to leave because we believed you had a set place. Now we absolutely know that's completely wrong, and so it's a much better time to be educated because it's all to play for, and even if you're not doing well at some part of your schooling, it doesn't determine what's coming next. It's still possible to do well.
Yeah, we do agree. We're very looking forward to the future. It's really fun just thinking of what will I be in the next 10 years.
So in your answer, you did talk about having thinking that you have fixed placements in your classroom. But there are also things such as performance and also potential. So I want to ask you, how do the power of yet and the growth mindset challenge the idea that someone has a fixed potential in intelligence?
So the truth is they don't have a fixed potential, but if they believe they do, that holds them back. So it's really important to understand that this is why we call it high performance learning, that whatever your performance now, it's like a snapshot in time. It doesn't affect what's going to come next. So the power of yet is all about saying, I understand that I'm not quite achieving what I wanted to achieve at the moment, but it's just not yet. If I keep working at it, I will master it, rather than thinking it's impossible to make that progress. And I think I'd just say that we know in real life that if you want to learn something new, you want to learn a new sport, you're not necessarily, some people, they have the aptitude and they can do it they start easily and it comes very naturally. But for other people, it doesn't. But I'm a researcher, and if you look at the evidence of very successful people, many of them were not very good at the beginning. They weren't as good as their peers, and they've gone on to excel. So I think we should just believe in it and forget the idea of fixed mindset. It's dead.
We all learn from practices.
Yeah.
So do us. So, Teacher Tommy, how does Nguyễn Siêu School encourage students to adopt the growth mindset and embrace the power of yet?
So I think it's quite amazing what Dr. Eyre spoke about, that idea of the power of yet. I mean, the phrase itself is quite powerful because, sometimes we might get a result on a score, or we might be in a specific situation where we feel like, is there any way that we can improve? But if we have that confidence within ourselves and we know that, we can still strive to be better, we can still work hard and improve ourselves, then we could still reach that potential that we want to reach. So at Nguyễn Siêu School, it's very important that, no matter what success the students achieve, whether it's like scores, whether it's like extracurricular activities, that we make sure to celebrate that progress. If it's in academics, like in schoolwork, then we make sure to give, feedback that allows for that opportunity for growth as well. So it's just, we want to nurture an environment where students feel that they can be confident within themselves, they can, still grow and achieve what they want to. And that's why the VAs and ACPs are quite important, because students can see over time, their classmates can see, their teachers can see whether they're developing and, they're being empathetic, they're being more empathetic, they're being more, they're using more meta thinking within their schoolwork. So these things can be visible, and then we could see it over time. So creating an environment like that is something that we strive very, very hard to do.
Yes, tracking your own progress, being able to track it, is very helpful in improving ourselves. And Professor Eyre, you did mention about people not being naturally good or gifted at a sport when they start out. So you did say that you should believe in yourself, believe in the process. But can you give more of a detailed on a few advices that you could give to encourage these people, especially students that are struggling when they get compared to their peers?
So the first thing to say is that if the marks come back and you don't get the mark that you wanted, it's natural to be disappointed. That's just a natural emotion. Yeah. But sometimes people send me little clips of video in school, and the example I want to give you is a boy who he's talking to his friend, and his friend said to him, "You didn't do very well in that test," and he says, "No, I didn't." He said, "But watch me next time." And that's what you really need, is to have that kind of sense that you're realistic about what happened, but you want to do better next time. And of course, how do you get to do better next time is that you have to be in the performance mindset, which means that you're reaching out to ask, how would I do better next time? Tell me what I did wrong. I want to do better, rather than sometimes with feedback, it's tempting to think, well, I did my best and it didn't work out the way I hoped, and so I just want to forget about it, and I don't want to think about it. But if you want to become a high performer, you need all the feedback you can get, because feedback is actually help. It's help to do it the next time. And I think getting people to understand that it's just okay not to have. It's okay not to have done as well as you wanted. You will be disappointed. Well, how do you respond to it? You say to yourself, it'll be better next time, and in order for it to be better next time, I need a bit of feedback about what I need to improve upon. And that feedback, and that's part of the work that teachers do, is it needs to be very specific. So not just generally you should improve this, but if you did this in this way, that would be better. So the kind of the way in which feedback is given, which is very precise, is very helpful. In sport, they call it marginal gains, whereby you get a piece of feedback on a particular thing that you've done, which you improve next time, and over time, each of those marginal gains leads to a big change. Yes. And it's just the same in cognition, in terms of what you're doing in school. So what you want is, how do I make the marginal gain? How do I do the next step forward?
Yeah, and students should be active about this. Sometimes, especially when we are in E-stream, we write a lot and we get feedbacks on our essays. But to be to strive better, we have to ask in this part, how would I rewrite this to achieve better marks? How what did we do wrong in that part? So it would be more specific and we'll strive better.
In our
it really applies.
In our science curriculum, we also face the same problems. We might understand the concepts, the ideas, yet our explanation might not be as clearly understood by our examiners. When they read them, they might not understand what we are trying to say, what we are trying to provide. And so we have to look upon our past mistakes and also try our best to make it as understandable for everyone as possible.
Yes, and I think with that, there are techniques that you can apply, like being disciplined with yourself about saying, in my explanation, I'm going to make 3 main points, and make them very clearly, rather than sort of have a more discursive ramble. There are ways in which you can structure your response, which will be easier for anybody who's assessing the exam or the test, to see the things they need to see. Yeah. So rather than, sometimes they're there but they're disguised, they're just in the middle of other things. So the more that you discipline the idea that you make 3 points, that's what lawyers do when they go to court. They might have, if they're going to defend someone, they might have a lot of information, but they're only going to make 3 points. Those are the 3 points that make the difference.
Yes.
So now we've got an idea of what the power of yet and the growth mindset is. But let's see how these ideas play out in the real world practice. As the school year unfolds, implementing these tools require us to answer some key questions. How are these tools aligned with the VAAs? And how do they influence our ACPs? What challenges might arise along the way? And in the next segment, we'll dive deeper into these areas, exploring how these frameworks can inspire meaningful change while navigating the hurdles that come with them. Now, Professor R, many students have shared concerns about how VAAs and ACPs are evaluated by teachers. But some feel that this process might add some extra stress and competition. And how do you address these concerns?
Well, I suppose in many ways, I think they're for students, not for teachers. So the ACPs and the VAAs, they're there to help make the rest of your work easier, because they're like a toolkit. So when I'm faced with this particular task in my curriculum, which tool would be most useful to me? So students should, what you really want is for them to kind of feel that they're a help, that they're really important to them. They're not another set of things that you have to learn and that somebody's going to assess. I mean, it is possible over time to get better at each of them. But the key thing first is to just use the right ones in the right places.
So,
That's comforting to hear. But it's even so, students can't shake the feeling that it might end up being more of a burden than a help. Like we get HPL points in our classes, like linking points, like meta thinking points when we did assignments or anything. So it's create a bit of like a competition between the students. So yeah, they might be stressed of these HPL points. So how can teachers and parents shift their perspective that this is for growth but not competition? Like we want students to see that VAAs and ACPs are like the guide to growth, but not the points that compete for competition amongst the students.
Well, I suppose there's two things I'd really say about that. Is that one is that getting to levels of mastery in these things isn't really a competition. So I know it's tempting to say, well, I've got more points than you've got on a particular aspect, but really you should think that that actually getting everybody to mastery is the objective, because the class works much better as a class if most people are able to do these things. So I think it's something that's got a bit lost there in the idea that that doing it more is necessarily doing it better, because it's not. It's using it appropriately. So you may feel that there's only one ACP that you need in that particular lesson because it fits the lesson. There's nothing to be gained by using additional ones that aren't particularly useful. It's just the right tool for the job. And I think that whole idea of maybe, and because I'm not one of your teachers, I don't know the answer to this, but maybe that the point system is partly just to encourage people to start using them and get familiar with them, and won't necessarily be the way it's done in the longer term. Because however you do this, it's a vocabulary that has to be introduced, and so you have to have some kind of mechanism for doing that introduction. But what you want is it gets to the point where it's you do it without thinking. It just becomes the language of learning, and it's just sort of pulsating in the background rather than being at the forefront. But in order to just become embedded, you do have to shine a light on it to start with. And it sounds like that shining the light phase is just kind of creating a bit of unintended pressure. But it's a really useful thing to talk about, and to think about, how we can kind of get around that, because this is my kind of bottom line on it is these are supposed to aid you, not stress you. So kind of thinking about how we get them into that position is really part of making it properly embedded in class.
Thank you, Professor Eyre. Well, we all say that parents are our first teachers, the real one that actually teach us everything upon life, how to treat people and all of that. So, and also you have made the book teaching about your HPL system, and also Miss Minh Thúy, our principal, have also translated it to Vietnamese. So now many parents might want to implement it in their own household to teach their child VAAs and ACPs. So what are your opinions and advice so that these parents can implement this correctly in a supportive manner rather than a pressuring manner?
So I think the first thing that I'd say about that is that for parents, that just kind of understanding that these things are useful and important, and that they're as important as subject knowledge. So sometimes parents feel that when their child has homework that they need to ensure that they work fully on that piece of content, and they work hard on it, and that may come over to their child as pressure to do well. what is important about the ACPs and VAAs is helping parents to understand that these are the competencies that in the long term their child is looking to develop, and therefore knowing about them is important, and knowing that that if supporting their child to develop them is as important as the subject knowledge is really helpful. And just things like encouraging through conversation at home some of these ACPs or VAAs. What you don't want is parents setting up a training program for them.
No.
It's not meant to be that. But on the other hand, for example, if you had, and sometimes this happens with younger children, if you have parents who help their child whenever they're struggling with anything, then if they do that too much, then the child learns a helplessness. They learn, when I can't do something, I ask somebody else to do it for me. And we're saying we want them to learn persistence, perseverance. So really the parents are inadvertently developing a different way of behaving. And so they're kind of pulling against the school. And they're not doing that on purpose, but by just talking to them about the importance of these things, they can just adjust what they do at home. But I would say that it's quite hard for parents to do that. So I'm a grandparent, and quite recently my small grandchild was struggling to open something, and I reached over to do it, and his mother reached my hand back and she said, let him do it himself. He will ask for help if he needs it. And then she turned to me and said, didn't you write the book on that? But that just shows how your natural instincts are to help, and that you have to kind of, as a parent, you have to just think, these are the things I'm trying to do. But some of the things like connection finding, that's very easy in just a household environment to sort of say, do you remember, it's a bit like we did this, or can you think of another example of that?
Yeah. Like, actually, my mother taught me perseverance, and it's kind of linking to these values. Like, when I was like 2 or 3 years younger, I was like cooking rice, and I added too much water. Like, every time I cook, I added too much water. I just like, why did you let my brother do it? Like, he did it like way better than me. Like, just let him cook. I'm not good at this. And she made me cook the rice until I do it like good. I cook good rice. Like, I don't add too much water. Like, I do it until I do it perfect.
And that just shows that, you know, she's already doing some of these things.
Yeah.
And I think when you're talking to parents, it's not only about these are useful things that you could do. It's also affirming the things they do already.
Yeah.
Which they just have done, you know, in her case, she was just quite intuitive about that. You know, she wanted you to persist, and you persisted. And so I think there's a sort of, that's a really good story, because
I mastered at cooking rice now.
Yeah, because that's and again, that's that whole thing of just not yet. You know, so the power of yet. You know, that she didn't even know about the power of yet, but that's what she was doing. And
So
that's
like
great.
parents can find the connection between the values and what they are doing. So it is pretty much easier, I think, to like just find the connections and like I just live it. I agree with that.
We use it more as a tool to help us understand what we are doing right now and what we should approach it in the future, and not as too hard of a guide on the specific of everything.
So teacher Tommy, can you share that how Nguyễn Siêu is ensuring that VAAs and ACPs are incorporated into the school culture in a way that would make students feel less pressured?
Yeah, of course. But on a side note, I really like that story with the rice as well. It's such an important survival skill to be able to cook
Survival
rice.
skills.
But yes, that's a very good question. So I think I want to recall back to what Professor Eyre said, and also you as well, Vin, like, we need to use it as a mechanism and a tool, not as a be-all end-all itself to for instance, like say that we're doing this, we're being agile in this. I think it's very important to realize that, for instance, when we're using the VAAs and ACPs within a group project, for instance, and we're using this skill for the students to realize that, by being more agile within this group activity, by linking this, by being more empathetic, I'm able to gain this knowledge and able to learn from this activity in a better way. So just realizing with that shared language, understanding the true meaning of what it means to be empathetic, what it means to use linking, and be able to realize all that and build the confidence within themselves. So of course that all starts with this shared language that I just mentioned, with all the teachers, with the students and the community of the students, for instance, their parents. So just being able to understand when we're mentioning about what this VA is, what this ACP is, that students truly understand the meaning of what it is, instead of just thinking that, I need to do this to get points for this. They'll realize that, if I do this, I can learn better, I can grow in this department, and then from there be able to develop the skills that I need to become a better learner, to be a better person. So just understanding that shared language, being able to use that to build the confidence within themselves, that's something that we're focusing a lot on. And that's something that I think we're growing quite well in.
Yeah, it's a very important thing to distinct between the HPL ranking system being a competition between learners, and we have to understand that I do believe what you're trying to say is it is more of a helping hand to the students rather than just a ranking system.
Yes,
so
exactly.
who has the most HPL points and
Wins.
who wins? Yeah, it's not a competition. It's just there to help you.
Yeah, we have to understand truly what it means instead of just using it as a tool.
Yeah. Now that we've explored thoroughly about VAAs, ACPs, and also the roadblocks that we and our parents, our teachers might encounter along the way, let's talk about how we can bring these concepts into our daily lives. In the following segment, we will follow and explore ways to build up intellectual confidence, boost self-efficacy, and handle the pressures of exam with relatively more ease. It's all about finding practical steps that feel doable and empowering. Exam results are often seen as the ultimate indicator of success by parents and also sometimes by students themselves. But this perspective can also take a huge toll on students' confidence and self-efficacy. So, Professor Eyre, how can students challenge this way of thinking and develop a more healthy mindset towards learning and exams?
I think one of the things that's really important is the knowledge that that in order to do well in exams, you need to be relaxed. So if you go into an exam stressed, you're less likely to do well.
Yes.
So actually knowing that there's merit in being in a relaxed state is an important thing. Now, it's not easy to be relaxed when you've got an exam coming up, because you know that whatever the mark is on that will have some effect on what comes next. So it creates a natural pressure point. But I think the best way to really think about that is firstly to be careful in your preparation, and so that you feel confidence in your own preparation. So you go in there feeling, I am prepared.
Yeah.
That helps you to relax, and also that whilst it is very difficult if the end result isn't quite what you wanted, I think this not yet piece is very, very powerful in understanding that you can come back from that, and many people do. That it's not what you desired, but it's not catastrophic. And I think sometimes, especially if you're a very good student, like you two are, you put yourself under a kind of pressure that it's got to be absolutely perfect. And really, doesn't have to be perfect. Whilst your exams are something which are very valuable to you in terms of school success, they're not the whole you, and you need to get them in proportion. So I think the sort of, understand you need to relax, make sure you're properly prepared for them, and if in the final analysis it's not quite the outcome you want, remember the power of not yet, and really think, this doesn't mean I just can't do it. It just means I need to redouble my efforts and look for another way to get through the same place.
Yeah. And I think it's like a really great opportunity to speak with you in person about that as well, because like the way you carry yourself, the way you speak is just very graceful and calm and relaxed, like you said. So that just shows, I feel like that shows us that you just have that confidence within yourself to be able to, do something, do new challenges, and still be so calm and graceful. So it's really great to see that in person.
And I think, I think it's right, and I absolutely am very happy to be sort of genuine around these things. But everybody has a certain amount of kind of imposter syndrome where you think, I'm not sure I can be the person everybody thinks I'm going to be. I feel that. Everybody feels that. Yeah. And I think kind of knowing that these things are natural rather than something that's wrong with you is also... So the more you understand about learning, the better you can be at it. And I think that's what HPL is all about, is helping students and their teachers, but students to understand learning so that they can navigate better.
Yes.
I think, it's the common problem. Like, after we get like a good result or something, it sometimes might take away the joy of learning. Like, we're still learning and we feel like we have to achieve something. It feels like it's our job, like to have the high, like, achievement, something. And sometimes learning isn't fun anymore. Like, to just feel the pressure of you must get something, or what else? What would others think about you? Like, they expect you like the A-star student, like the role model of others. But suddenly, what if you get something like a B or a C on your test? Like, what would they think? So it just takes away the joy of learning.
I so agree with that. It's almost like the more successful you are, the more pressure there is, because people have expectations. So, if you don't do well, they say things like, I would have expected you to be able to do that.
Yeah.
True.
And it's a kind of, that makes it even worse. So, but I think the answer to that is, as the young boy said, which is, yes, actually, I feel I didn't get where I wanted to on that particular occasion, but watch me next time.
Watch me next time.
That's the answer. It's the sort of. But I'm not denying the fact that it's sometimes sometimes doing well is hard to maintain.
Yeah, like over time, you have to try your best to keep up that performance, never letting it drop, and it starts to feel a bit more like you're studying, you're performing all that for other people to see. It doesn't feel like you're studying for yourself. It doesn't feel like you're trying to improve yourself, just trying to entertain and meet other people's expectations.
I think, it's undeniable that school exam systems create that. That because it's like there's a certain time frame in which you must master this particular content in order to be able to perform on an exam on a set date at a set time, and that creates. It takes away the joy of learning, because sometimes you'd kind of like to delve into it deeper and spend more time on it, but you can't because it has to be done by this set time. So I think what you want to do generally in school is to try and get a bit of balance in all of that. The further you get up the school system, the more that exams tend to dominate. But I think, again, you have to sort of think through to the other side of that. When you get into the university, they don't. So you have end of year exams, but it's not. It's a different kind of pressure. So I think I think you just have to find the opportunities for joy in learning. It's not always joyful, but the most satisfying thing in the research, there's a concept called flow, and was Kylie's work, and his sort of ideas are that, you know, if you do something that's really easy, you don't get much satisfaction out of it.
Yes.
I agree.
If you do something that's too hard, it's really stressful. But if you're in that place where it's a bit of a stretch, but you know you've got the skill to do it, that's when you get the real satisfaction, when you sort of sit back and think, goodness, that essay, that was really, it was hard, but I'm really happy with it. That's when you get learning satisfaction. So you just need to seek out any opportunities that you can to get into flow, because it's a very, it's very, very powerful. It makes you feel really good, you know, kind of, and it sort of sustains you for then the more difficult times when learning's not so much fun.
Yes. And that's a wonderful thing about like finding the joy in learning. Like as Vin said, if you don't find that joy in learning, it might feel like you're, you know, learning and then studying for other people, and it's just easier to burn out.
Yeah.
So I think it's just very important to be able to find that like intrinsic motivation within us. Like we want to grow, and we want to like learn this subject because we like it. We feel like it's gonna benefit and make our life more colorful, instead of like just learning it for some points.
Yeah.
So, Professor, what role can schools and families play in helping students see the value beyond grades?
I think students are, they have to kind of think, they have to raise their head a little bit, and they have to think about where is their life going, what are the things that they enjoy within it, and the things that they find demanding and challenging, and also, you know, in terms of all of this, things that you do outside of exams are really, really important, extracurricular interests, because they sustain you at the times when some of the other things are really trying. So I think there's a sort of, there's a piece about thinking about this as not so short term. So finding ways to cope with the short term by doing some things that you really like to do in other parts of your life, but also understanding that this is a lifelong journey, and it's whatever you're doing now is just one tiny phase within it, and that you have to get that in proportion. That otherwise, because that's how you get to feel better well-being in school, is just the sort of sense that it is that kind of understanding that you're on a lifelong journey here. You're very lucky to be in the school that you're in, having opportunities that you have, but you can only do the best you can do at the time.
Yes.
That's the best you can do. And you should feel satisfied with that.
So, Teacher Tommy, what initiatives does Siêu do to help students to manage exam pressures while still maintaining their confidence and their resilience?
So that's a good question. I think one thing that you just said, Professor, is just that learning is a lifelong journey. So even though like for instance, I'm teaching my students and they're learning from me, I'm also learning from them as well. So I think that's like one of the beautiful things about education and teaching. Also like at our school as well, we do want initiatives like wellness programs and things like that to help students like de-stress during exam time. We do have a lot of events that we do at our school at Siêu, so it's like a good chance for students to express their interests. They could participate and do activities with clubs that speak to them and just kind of realize more about themselves and do those to build more confidence within themselves. So just having that confidence within themselves, having people that they know they can trust and they can rely on, I feel like that's going to be a great way to help manage that stress.
Yeah. Oh, and also our student council, we are having like a program called Study Zone, where they can sit and thrive study by themselves, or they can choose to study with a mentor who is also a student. So we're encouraging help and communication between the students, which creates more joy of learning, and also it encourages activeness.
And I think that's a really great idea, because that's another thing that you'd think that everybody would know how they learn best.
And I feel it's a fun conversation. So thank you, Professor R. Thank you, Teacher Tommy, for joining us today and sharing your advices.
Yes. So before we wrap things up and finalize everything, Professor Eyre, what is one final message that you'd like to send to every one of our students in Siêu School?
I think I'd like to send the message that our current knowledge about human capability is that almost everybody has it within themselves to perform highly. They may not manage to perform as highly as they like during the time at which they're in this school, but that does not mean that they can't do it later. So you journey in optimism, and if it all comes right in school, that's terrific, and if it doesn't, you just try again.
Teacher Tommy, any last words for encouragement for the students?
I would just like all the students to know that, Siêu, like we would do everything we can to, support our students the best way that we can, because at the end of the day, we just want our students to be able to grow and be confident within themselves. So, just believe in yourself, know that you can achieve, even if you're not there now, it's just that you're not yet there. If you work hard and you do the best to your abilities, you'll be able to get there soon. So believe in yourself and keep going.
Thank you both so much for being here and spending your time with us today. And also, thank you very much to our listeners and our viewers for joining us today. Remember, at Siêu School, we believe in the power of yet and that everyone has the potential to achieve greatness.
Until next time, keep believing in yourself and striving for your best. Thank you.
Until next time.